Yo, pay attention inside and relax. Presta atención dentro de ti mismo y relájate. Prêtez attention à l'intérieur de vous et on se relaxe, on se détend. Petite gorgée de café, c'est pas de café. Un poco de cafecito. I have been asked again to give bigger pauses for my translators, so I will try again not to get carried away. It's always good to start class just focusing inside, relaxing. The topic today is fairly simple. Emotional integration. What is it? Where does it come from? Where is it going? Who the hell practices that? The term emotional integration, I did not invent. I heard it in my own training. When I was 19 to 26, that period of time, I trained into a Brahmanical tradition, not headed by a Brahman, but Brahmanical in style. Yoga, mantra, chanting, a bit of philosophy, and one key component of personal growth. They called it emotional integration. They changed names over time. It was at the time the Foundation for God Self thing, New Age title. Swami Paranananda Saraswati. There's a million of those. So anyway, they showed us abandonment, rejection, and guilt as three emotions. And power, control, and manipulation as things that the human does. That is what I learned with them. Emotional integration was just three emotions and three things we do to. There was also the victim, savior, and persecutor. So these 9 concepts were taken from successful psychology, if you want. It was applied at the reactive level. So when you have an emotion, you focus on it and you feel it so that it liberates. And that was the whole of their art. I decided, well, I always do that. Take what works and try to make it better. So since this part of personal growth worked, I kept it. I tried to make it better, of course. And I decided that I would classify it according to my intuition of the moment. 7 categories of 3 components total of 21 things that I would later call the masks of the ego. Later meaning a few hours later. Like, once I made the chart, I said we need a name for that. So, masks of the ego. It is not just what I've learned with them. What I've learned with them was the surface of it. Before that, when I was younger, I learned about personal growth in any book I could read about the attitude. And there's an author, Omram Mikhail Ivanov, who gave clues about an honest personal growth. That inspired me when I was 16 years to follow my inner demons as deep as I can. That was his expression. Follow your inner demons. Taste them. See where they lead. Of course, by itself, that system is also incomplete. It would allow any New Age hippie to fantasize on a mythological false reality inside. Still very inspiring. Took classes with psychologists. I was a New Age hippie. I wanted to know everything. And this is how I decided eventually I have to compose a system in the way I use it. I have to inspire others in personal growth in a way that they would not be trapped in beliefs or mysticism. So that's how I built personal growth system called emotional integration, what it is today for us. And once we apply it at the reactive level or the surface level, we can use it to observe our behavior, to understand I made that, I created that. That emotion that hurt me, I'm the one who allowed it to settle in. It is something inside me that permitted this condition to happen. Combining all the years of study in the sadhu path and the Buddhist studies that I've made, accumulated in this system that you know today as emotional integration, which is, I believe, very efficient. The goal is to give tools to someone to become emotionally responsible as fast as possible. But more than emotionally responsible, find freedom from the forces inside. Now we talk about these forces inside. Most of you have heard about Visantara. Visantara is a practice where we apply some emotional integration. Visantara is based on simple honesty with yourself. We ask ourselves when we start Visantara the first time, the last time I got angry, I did not choose it. It just happened. We don't choose to be angry. Anger is something that rises. And that is a fact that we cannot deny. If we never get angry, then it's disappointment. That disappointment rises. It happens. We don't take the time to think about it. We don't plan ahead a session of disappointment, which leads to a form of little depression. It just rises. That fact cannot be denied by anyone who is sane in their mind. Some people are insane, mentally unstable, and they would say, I choose when I get angry. I'm in charge of me. If I got disappointed, it was a choice. It's a way of saying it that we're in charge of everything. But we don't decide, oh, I would rather suffer now than be happy. We never do this. It doesn't happen. Admitting to ourselves that when we get angry, we don't choose. When we are disappointed, we don't choose. That is the base of being honest with ourselves. And it causes us to realize an undeniable fact. There are forces inside us that we don't control. There are forces inside us that make choices for us. When these forces awaken and act, we lose free will. We become a slave to whatever is awakened inside. It is necessary for this realization to happen to be honest with ourselves. To the simple question, did I get angry or disappointed lately? The answer is yes, it happens. Most of the time. A few rare, very enlightened people don't live that, but it's rare. So it's just about asking ourselves to see, can I be honest with myself? And say, yeah, it still happens. We want to be saints. We want to be great masters. We want to be super accomplished and delve into ascension. But the fact is, do we sometimes still get angry or disappointed? It's just about being honest with ourselves. And the answer is usually yes. With that kind of humility, that honesty with ourselves, personal growth is now efficient. Without that honesty with ourselves, personal growth is not efficient. We can do any method. It will not be efficient if we are lying about the most simple facts, actual facts in our life. This is not subjective, it's objective. Subjective is the feeling of anger. Objective is the fact that it happens. Okay, just to be honest and admit it. So, with this honesty, we can now really want to evolve, to get better. We can now choose to apply the tools deeper, more patiently, put in a bit of work in it. Whoever does not spend a bit of time to work on themselves do not get results. If you want spiritual results, you need to do spiritual techniques. Whoever does not take the time to charge mantras or pray or meditate, it's not wrong. Everyone is free. But they don't get the results at the spiritual level like those who actually do take the time. 10 to 20 minutes a day is a good minimum. 3 hours a day, oh, that's for the freaks. That's what I did for a time. That's for the freaks. It's not required. Emotional integration, doing practices with that. Sometimes we just don't feel like doing it. My typical example, it's like doing the dishes. Once you start, you don't realize it anymore, and it just goes so fast. Imagine in the future, Maha will be remembered mostly for the guy who teaches you to clean your dishes immediately. Like the summit of my wisdom. So often I take this example. My God. I hope that doesn't happen. So, if you put in the work on yourself, maybe not daily, but often, it will give results. So, it looks technical, the emotional integration. 21 masks, a Cartesian system, specific processes, time spent feeling every single mask inside you. Taking the time to study the 21 masks is 21 Visantara. It's 21 times of honesty with yourself. Pride. Do I have pride sometimes? And if you can find it, then you're honest with yourself. Now, you always have someone who says, I have no pride. Then it's time to deepen, to make more profound the definition of pride. If your definition of the word pride is so shallow, superficial, that you can say, I have no pride. I never react or act with pride. That's because your definition is shallow. If you were to study what is pride, you would be able to see moments in your life where it is pride that rised and protected you. So that's an example that I gave. Being honest with yourself, but also be educated about what are these masks? How deep do they go? And asking yourself eventually, do I have pride? the reaction I had yesterday or last week, was it pride? Yes. Good. I'll give teachings of pride later. Now I'm speaking of emotional integration. So, doing a practice of observation of pride, it will help you see it afterwards when it rises, when the masks rise, when the machine inside the animal takes action and it wants to make choices that are not your free will. It just wants to command you to become angry. If you studied it, observed it, felt your pride or any other mask, you get used to its flavor. You get acquainted with its flavor, how it feels. So when it rises, you recognize it. My pride is hurt now. I want to react with pride. And because you've practiced, you see it happen. This class seems to be very newbie class. Huh? It is. You can't always give advanced classes. It is important to spend time when we pretend to be on the spiritual path. To take time to do personal growth in an efficient way. If someone asks you about beer, all the kinds of beer, the kinds of tastes, if you're a beer drinker, if you are used to it, someone offers a beer, you know exactly what it is. Ale, Pilsner, Lager, all these kinds. And you already understand the tastes, the effect on your body. But if you're like me, the only beer you drink is cheap, weak beer, I don't know about beer. And I rarely have it. Most people do not know about wine. So you give a glass of wine, they drink it, it's wine. But I got used to wine. Although I don't feel like it anymore, I drank a lot of red wine. So you would tell me which type it is, I would smell it, and play the game like a sommelier, and describe the wine, talk about it, enjoy the smell, and all this kind of thing. To get there, I had to get used to the flavors. Then I could recognize it. Same with chocolate. Belgian chocolate, Swiss chocolate. How much percentage of cacao? Is there something else in it? A chocolate lover would talk about its chocolate and enjoy the variations of flavors. For me, chocolate, you put it in your mouth. You're happy for a moment. End of the story. The masks of the ego, if we want to understand the ego, if we want to be able to talk about it, we have to study its flavors, the various feelings inside. We've established 9 feelings inside. The various ways the ego wants to express itself. We've established 9 ways the ego expresses itself. And all of this is based on 3 core poisons or systems of attachments. And that's 21. 9, 9, 3, that's 21. Okay. So the maths doesn't matter. Getting used to the flavors, practicing, studying the masks is what will make you able to recognize it when it happens. You will become like a sommelier of the ego if you study. You don't have to. It's optional. It's just one of those things. It is extremely useful. When pride rises, that's a denial. But did it rise because you're attached to something? Or was it just egocentrism? What caused your pride to flare? Are you playing the victim? Is it false hope that was triggered? There's a mechanic behind it that caused your pride to rise if pride rises. Shame is more terrible. Shame is something we don't like to feel ashamed. Pride, we're even proud of our pride. It's a mask that sustains itself. I'm proud, and you can still fuck up. You know, shame also sustains itself. We're ashamed of being ashamed. We really hope no one would ever discover this specific thing about us, even ourselves. It causes us to hide. No, it's okay. Shame is that. Fear of other things. Fear also self-sustains. It's a denial. So we're afraid of being afraid. 3 denials are self-sustained reactions. Okay? They are part of the ways that the ego expresses itself. If you have studied these masks, you will see them when they rise, before you start to act. Fear now is there. And if I'm not in charge, I'm going to act out of fear. You've seen yourself in your past, in your life, act out of shame or pride or fear. One of these 3 denials flared up or rised and pushed you in saying words that were not accurate or that were not true. Take decisions that were even worse. Do things that you'll regret. And it becomes even more complicated. Getting used to the flavors of the ego, it allows us to see it when it happens. It allows us to recognize the first symptoms. And once you're acquainted with pride, shame, and fear, you can go deeper and feel what is the emotion behind it. Abandonment, rejection, or guilt. These three emotions are also words. It's just words. Depending on your definition of them, they can be shallow or very deep. For that reason, it is wise to study the three emotions so that we could better understand how far it goes inside us, how deep it is rooted. With the denials and the emotions, you got the core of how the ego immediately responds to things. The three denials and the three emotions, they operate through a complex machinery made of every other mask. In order to look at yourself honestly, what did I just do there? What am I doing? How wise are the choices I'm making right now? Do I still have my cognitive functions? Last class, I taught that when we are dramatic, when we are emotional, we lose 30% of our intelligence. When the denials and the emotions act, we lose 30% of our intelligence. We basically cannot think clearly. And because of that loss of intelligence, we cannot even realize that we're not thinking clearly. But later, we will look back and say, oh shit, I was not thinking clearly. Because it happened in your life. What I explained to you when I teach about emotional integration, I can only use examples that the majority of people have actually lived, or else it would make no sense. So that's why I can only teach using typical, general events that happens to everyone. And that also requires your honesty about it. Nope, never did a bad choice in my life. Happy with myself. If you really are like that, maybe you don't need our services. Just go on with your life. It takes honesty with yourself to practice emotional integration. And just a bit of time every day, or often every week, to study what are the masks, learn deeper definitions, discover their flavor. It's not about knowing in the head. It takes the humility to feel. Pride is not just an intellectual force. It is, but it's not just that. It's emotional. It is felt. That shell, that wall, that just refused. It's just pure denial. No, I am not an idiot. You are. Pride. No, it's like that. It's a feeling and a thought process and animal reaction. It's every level. Pride just rises. Then every level is defensive. So it takes humility to admit that we live it and take the time to feel its flavor. How does that feel? What is pride? to go deep, breathe, and feel that force when it acts. Every mask is like that. It is a flavor. It is an intellectual machinery, mechanics. It is a genetic response. At every level, it works. And it has a flavor. Even in the mind, even deep in the body, it's still a flavor to feel. Taking time to discover these masks will get us acquainted, build a relationship with the masks, become friends with them, to know ourselves. The typical New Ager will say, everyone's different. The system cannot apply to everyone because everyone is different. To this I answer, everyone who say they are different have two eyes right here, one nose here, one mouth here. The head is not square, it's ovoid. Their lungs are at the same place as everyone. The stomach and the liver are at the same place as everyone. The minerals that make their bones is the same minerals of every bone in every human. You may think that you are the same, but everyone who is not highly mutated or handicapped is built exactly the same way. You are different as a person, but your machine, the body, the emotional plane, the mental plane, is identical to everyone. We are the same. Some have blue eyes, some have not red eyes, unless they got hurt, green eyes, sometimes gray, brown, black, but they are eyes. It's only how they appear that is different. Some would say, but men and women are very different. Two eyes, the nose there, the mouth there. The only difference is where we got balls. On the chest or between the legs. Everything else is the same. Okay? We are different on the superficie, how we look outside. But the core machinery is identical. The acid in the stomach is the same. The way our diaphragm works to breathe is the same. And that is why the mask of the ego applies to absolutely everyone. Because we are built that way. And for that reason, whoever tries it will get results. Simply because this system was not built on dreams. It was built on observed facts. When pride rises, it does in the way it does. When we feel abandonment, it is the same basic emotion for everyone who feels abandonment. What changes is the story. My lover went away. My friend went away. My parents died. Abandonment has a different story, but its composition is exactly the same. Everyone reacts differently to chocolate or alcohol, but the effect of chocolate on the body is the same. The effect of alcohol on the body is the same. The mechanics is chemistry and physics. Your beliefs in your mind will not change the laws of the universe. There's a system of laws on the physical plane: physics, chemistry, thermodynamics, mechanics of fluids. There's these systems, actually, they're the same on every plane. You can't change the laws of the universe. Emotional integration was built on years of observation. How do we feel? What are the facts? And once I applied it to myself, I taught it to a few people to get feedback. And they gave the expected feedback. The system was also identical to them. It worked. The only difference was the story that brought them the event of the ego. So after a few, I talked to 100, and I listened for comments. I adjusted just the way I say a few things to get better at teaching it. And now we teach to hundreds of thousands. We did statistics lately. There's more than 1 million person who has been touched by the emotional integration system that I built. It's pretty cool. And there's between 20 to 25,000 people right now who are actively practicing frequently. That's pretty cool. It's a system that those who give negative feedback, we all agree it's just not their thing, but there seems to be a lack of honesty. Sometimes a mental illness, but most of the time we're just not honest enough. We don't really want to know what's inside. Sometimes we want to learn a technique like aspirin, something that will make the pain go away without effort. Sometimes it's medicine that tastes bad. It tastes bad. It feels bad in the body, but it heals you deeply. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to emotional integration. For the next 7 classes, I will be speaking of the 3 denials, then the 3 emotions, the 3 tools, the roles, the needs, the expectations, the attachments. I'm going to give a class of simple emotional integration. Yeah. We need that. It's going to be good. It all starts by accepting simple facts. We do sometimes get angry. We do sometimes get disappointed. And maybe it's about how we define disappointment. I don't get disappointed. It's just I'm pissed nothing's working the way I want. Okay, we call it disappointment. Sometimes we use different expressions to mean the same thing. Part of the learning process is agreeing to the definition of these words. A word is a word. We can make whatever we want of it. Until we agree on what it means and how it applies, we can't apply the technique correctly. It is false to assume everyone understands these words. Love is a word. For some, love is a revelation from the universe. For some, it's an orgasm. For some, love is getting enough attention. For some, love is parental, mostly. The experience of love that you got the most powerful in your life is what inspires you what the word love means. Younger people speak of love as attraction, or the hippies, but it's in the universe. But whoever never had children cannot understand love the way a parent feels it. Love is being afraid for someone. Love is worrying. Love is not all pink, all rainbows and butterflies. Love is extremely broad. So we'll need to enumerate all these different types of love. It is still love. All of them are right. All of them are accurate. It is not taken for granted that everyone knows what word means what. So in a class of emotional integration, we give examples of each mask, what they are, how we behave in general for most people. So then you can do your own work on yourself. Recognize each mask and say, yeah, okay, I do that. Sometimes there's a student who doesn't last long. I disagree. This thing that you describe, I call it that other thing. Say, cool. Call it another word. Doesn't matter. It's just a word. But if you want to understand my class, you have to understand what word I use to refer to which behavior. You can still call it the different things. Some of the work is just agreeing on the definitions so we can understand the progress of the class. Words are just words, but it's the only tool I have to talk to you. I even need translators who do their best. Because between languages, some words don't even exist. Yeah. It takes training to translate me to understand the wisdom I'm talking about, to find a way to transmit it. My gratitude goes to the translators. And my gratitude goes to the listeners, the watchers. Without you serious about your work, without you serious about watching these videos of wisdom, the classes would not be possible. I would not be able to live teaching to 2 people. It is the many hundreds that watch this wisdom over a week that allows me to keep going. So my gratitude goes to my audience or my students. Thank you, everyone involved. Share the wisdom. Share it. Don't be religious about it. Don't sell your friends God. No. Be a good listener and give good counseling. Oh, that seems like I understand you're hurt, but it looks like you're attached to something and it's gone. So letting go of it is better. Try to influence your friends to do a step without selling them a religion. Okay, just be good people. Spread the wisdom in a kind way. Make the world better, one integration at a time. Peace. See you next time, Monday.